Let's see. Hi, friends. Sorry, we did not record the beginning of that, but that is technology and that is how this works. And so in this program, I want you to know that this is an open conversation. So if something comes up from you, if something lands differently, if maybe you've heard a concept before in your life and it lands differently, like let me know in the chat box if there's questions, if there's concerns, if there's a trigger, if you want to personalize this for you. I may not get to it exactly as you send it, but I will go through it before we close out of our conversation for the day to make sure that with this hour you get the most out of it. Right. I know sometimes when we're talking about relationships and we're talking about triggers and we're talking about our past and our traumas and our lived experiences, it can be like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to articulate this, or I don't know how to bring it. So know that your questions, whether it's on the live call, I know a lot of you are going to be watching this replay as well, whether it's in that context or you want to email me, your questions aren't only for you. Like, this is why I love group programs. This is why, when I started healing myself and I was going to Al-Anon and CODA, which is Codependency Anonymous, there were sometimes questions I didn't know I needed, right? Like, I know I had the feelings, but I didn't have the words. So sometimes maybe like this question, you're like, oh, like that seems too out there, or, too simple or too vulnerable. Know that it's impactful for the groups. So inviting you to start that conversation, you can always private message me on here. You can always send me an email, or you can DM me over on Instagram. Just so you make sure that we can get the most out of this. And for the next 2 weeks, we get everything that we came here for, that we enrolled in this program for. And I'm actually curious, what did spark your interest in joining this program? When you saw it, when you saw the demonstration, when you saw the branding, whatever, what was it that invited you to the table here that made you want to jump in and have this conversation? I always get very interested to see like what that is. And then also that helps to expand on different things, because we do have outlines, but I channel my programs just before coming live. So I'm so excited to be here. I am so honored that y'all jumped in and trusted me with this journey to walk with and to be in this space. There's something about time, right? Like, time is the one thing we can never get back. We can always make more money. We can always do more things. We can always do what have you, but time is the one thing that we don't get back. And the fact that you chose Healing to Happy, you chose me to invest the next 2 weeks in, that's several hours, whether it's 4 hours or 6 hours, we haven't decided yet, but to invest in that, like, I am so thankful and so filled with gratitude in that space. And I hope that you're also celebrating that, right? Like, there are so many people that, and maybe you've experienced this in your lifetime, you've experienced like, we want something, but we don't do it and we talk ourselves out of it, but you actually made that leap. So I really invite you, you're going to see in this program, every day we have homework, because there's ways that we can listen to stuff, right? Like, we can listen to a podcast, we can read a book, but if we don't apply stuff, it doesn't really sit in. So you're going to be having homework to do. And one of the homeworks for today is taking yourself out on a solo date to celebrate what you did, whether that is like take yourself with champagne and oysters and what have you, or for a coffee in some place, or you're just going to go have a quick quiet moment in the park, like something to really lock this into your nervous system of like, I am choosing me. I'm choosing to fucking be done with the cycles of my past. I'm choosing to eliminate the stories that I've continued to cycle myself. I'm choosing to show up and be brave and be in my moment and be honored to be here now, and just really lock that in, because that's how you tell your nervous system, I'm here, I've arrived, I'm excited to walk this path, and I'm now setting a new tone. So that's going to be your first homework assignment. Again, I'll reiterate this at the end, but that's how that's going to work. How this program is going to work. You guys already got the schedule. If there are extra things, because I like to honor the time. So it will be an hour long, but if I have more that I have to say on a subject, we're just going to add extra modules. Okay. And I know all of our time zones are so different. Like, we have people from Asia to Australia to Europe to America. Like, the time zones are just all over the board. So wherever you can tap in, or whenever you can tap in, that is absolutely perfect. That's why they're kind of scattered around. But if we need more time, we will. But as of now, that's our schedule. So we have those 4 calls. And at the end, if there's any questions or anything, that's where we're going to be answering them. You will find everything that you need if you're watching the replays uploaded to your, what's it called? Member vault. So my team or I don't know if Cassandra will be sending that out. Also, if you are coordinating with me, my team, Cassandra is the other person that you'll be chatting with if need be. She's like the tech side of things and social media and things. If you're watching the replay of this, the replays will all be loaded in a member vault. So that's where our product and all of our programs are. Your email will be what you signed up with. The email that you signed up with will be your login, and then your password will also be your login. You'll get an email with all of that, but it'll be uploaded. Sometimes it takes a little extra time, but within the next 24 hours, it'll be uploaded there. So you will have lifetime access to this. You will also have a customized playlist, because I like to coordinate music that goes with concepts that we're learning so that we can start to integrate the lessons beyond, because I know you like what I have to say, but I don't think we watch programs more than maybe 1 or 2 times. Maybe we revisit them once a year, but music is something that we listen to over and over and over again to really solidify it into your nervous system. So I have a custom playlist that you guys will have access to as well over on Spotify, and that will be uploaded in there. You will also see your homework inside of there. So how are we feeling? How's it going? What questions do you have? Before we tap in here, I really just want to be here now, right? Be open your heart, receive what has to come through, close the tabs, be present, receive the message of what is supposed to be coming through, because you're here for a reason, right? Whatever it is that led you here, you're here for a reason. And sometimes we're bouncing around and getting distracted and doing the things. I mean, to be honest, like when I listen to transmissions, I go on walks, but when we're doing all these other things and kind of bouncing around, it can be a little overwhelming. So be open, ready to receive, being here, being full in your heart. I'm so excited that you're here. Like I said, this is going to be an hour long. Let me know how you're doing. Drop it in the chat. This is an open conversation. And so this program is all about reprogramming your nervous system and re-establishing what your relationship patterns are, whether that's romantic, whether that's platonic friendships, whether that's business relationships and inviting people into your companies. And, if you work in sales and administration and things like that, like calling in the right people, whether that's your children and you're wanting to establish more trust with your children. That's what we're going to be breaking down here. And really where that comes from is you becoming a living sanctuary, you becoming the safest place for people to land. What I've seen a lot in this field is we put a lot of emphasis on others to make us feel safe, to help us feel full and belonging and like we're loved and like we're sexy and everything is external. And what this program is doing is inviting it back to you, giving you your power back, and not in a way of defense mechanism, wall up power that I see in this wounded feminist culture that is really happening right now. And it's not that I don't love the fact that it's all women forward and things like that, but there's a space where it can be very aggressive and it's not actually open and tender and soft. And my biggest mission in this world is to create a world that women feel soft, like we're allowed to be ourselves. And there's this great and grandiose like spectrum of who we are and what we do. And it's eliminating this fear of being too much, of being seen, of thinking our emotions are too much. And really, when we have emotional mastery, when we have a better understanding of who we are and what our attachment styles are and the way that they come up, and then we become secure in that, it shifts. It's like this permission slip of life. And so that's what we're going to be doing is the unattached woman. She creates the invitation. She breaks the cycles. She lets her life be her work of art, right? And that comes from this internal trust that is literally, it's unshakable. It's the most beautiful experience that you can walk through. And so, when we think of the word unattached, right, it means not belonging to. Let's actually look it up verbatim. Not working for or belonging to a particular body or organization. So when I think of that, because even when I read things in that nature, oh, baby. I'm done. I'm seeing your message now. But when we're looking at the term unattached and it says not belonging to an organization, it can feel this kind of defense mechanism. It feels like kind of like a wall, right? But when I was creating this program, when I was creating unattached, and what that meant to me was, again, going back to the part that I said, we live in a world that we look for this external validation. This is where I belong. And it started from when we were young, right? Like, if I can think back to like preschool time, and we have to be chosen to be sit at this table or for this play group or for this sports team. And that kind of grew as we got older. When it got to middle school, like, I don't know about you, but I was a kid that was bullied. Like, I didn't belong because I've always been this like abstract human, and I had all these different kind of friend groups, and that sense of belonging didn't come naturally, and it was always about being chosen and looking a certain way and trying to fit in but not actually feeling like you're fitting in, and trying to get accepted. And then you start to, like, I don't know, for me, I started to like sexualize myself so that men would choose me, but then there's that rejection that would come in, and then I would overdo things and lose myself in the process. And so when we're thinking of the unattached woman, all of the masks that she has built up in her life, all of the personas and personalities and self-protection mechanisms that she has built up in her lifetime are dismantled. And so it's not that she doesn't belong to an organization, she is the organization. People want to belong to her organization. She is the safest place for others to land. She's the living sanctuary. It's that type of woman where you walk in, I literally have chills, where you walk in and it's this like magnetism of like, oh my goodness, like, who is she? Who is she? I need to talk to her. And it's not these like needy, manipulative people that want to take advantage of you. It's these people that are like, there is something about you. Like, the amount of times that I now get that question, like, I don't know what it is. Like, yes, obviously you're beautiful, but like, there is just this energy, right? And that's what freedom is. And it also comes from a space of being comfortable being seen. Because when you've had so many masks and so much protection built up in your lifetime of, these are my desires, but if I go after my desires, I won't belong to the pact. And so the question I hear this all the time, like, I have this desire, what's wrong with me? Or this keeps happening to me, what's wrong with me? And I felt that too, right? Like, I want this, I want to do this, I want more. I have these desires. This is how I want to dress. Like, this is how I want to speak. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, that was a question that plagued my soul for so many years. What is wrong with me? Why does this keep happening? Can you relate to that maybe? Or like something has bubbled up where you're like, this pattern keeps repeating itself, or I keep trying to do this thing, or I have this fetish. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, these type, and like, nothing is. A phrase I love is, you're born worthy. Nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing has changed. God, universe, source did not plant you on this earth and go, everyone else is going to have everything that they need except that person. That wasn't the vibe, right? And so when we're looking at our life picture and we're looking to shift things, that's what we have to start to reprogram and really lengthen our time horizon on our outcome of life, on our relationships, on our life, on our health, on our money, on our wealth. Like, that would just lengthening, because time is the construct. So if you're looking at this program and you're like, okay, in 2 weeks, I'm going to heal my relationship patterns and call in the love of my life and all these kind of things. And I'm not saying that's not possible. I'm here for fucking quantum leaps in every realm. Right. But when we put this time crunch on, I need it now, it comes from this anxiously attached outcome. And we're going to be talking about anxiously attached in our next call on Thursday. but and control and all this kind of stuff. But when we think of the context of our life in that kind of time frame, it's a crunch. It doesn't work. It's in self-protection. It tightens it. And this is when we start to get into this anxiety ridden kind of life where it's like, I'm not there yet. What's wrong with me? Right. And so today, when we're talking about subconscious programming and slaying shame, like time has a big concept on that. Like, I thought I should have been here by now is a phrase I hear a lot. What's wrong with me? Right? I'm at this age, I'm doing these kind of things, and these are the type of people that keep coming into my life, or these are the kind of stories that keep coming up for me. Like, what is wrong with me? And so when we eliminate time, and if we can kind of infuse this with trust that you're exactly where you're meant to be, and it's fine. Like, it's the feminine archetype, it's the feminine desire to want more. That is totally normal, and that's good. But when we come from wanting more from a space of lack, that's where shame comes in. I'm not there yet. But it's like, ooh, I'm here, I'm good, this is banging, I'm studying, I'm learning about my nervous system, I'm reprogramming my nervous system, I feel so good, I feel so loved with my present. And oh my God, can you imagine if I had this love story of the ages and I was having orgasms around the world and I dressed this way and I had this stuff? Like, if it came from that type of space, it'd be so different. And so when we're looking at this program and we're looking at what's to come, like, you are planting the seed right now. There's a space where it's like you can't even imagine what's coming next, right? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, the story of my life, and how this has changed everything for me. I am going to talk about domestic violence. I'm going to talk about drug addiction. I'm going to talk about eating disorders. I'm going to talk about addictions of varying degrees. So if that stuff triggers you, maybe silence this for a minute. I will do a nice little hand thing when I'm done talking about it. Give it like 5 minutes and then tune back in here. But the reason this work is so near and dear to my heart, because for my entire life, like up and not my entire life, that'd be dramatic, but I would say, like, my dad even said before I came, so I'm currently visiting my parents. My dad even said, like, I lost my daughter from the ages of 8 to around 24. And he did. Because what I had learned in my nervous system is that I am not safe to be who I am. Because I will be bullied, I will be abused, I'll be taken advantage of. So the playful child that was dancing on stages and playing and fully expressed, and I loved dress up and I loved putting on these shows, and me, I'm a double Libra. I love beautiful things. I love attention. I love speaking. That got ripped away. Right. And I became angry and I started to self-protect. And what science calls self-sabotage, or what society calls self-sabotage, right? My anger, my aggression, my drugs, my drinking, all the kind of things that were happening, science calls self-protection. I didn't know that. And so as I got older and started to really experiment, like I said, it was like I didn't belong in school. Like, I just didn't, I don't know, like I was in the sports teams, I was also hanging out with stoners, I was in the party group, I was in the jocks, like I was like my boyfriend at the time, like I was all over the board because I was like, where do I belong in this lifetime? Right? Putting all of my power outside of myself. And so that would lead me to being taken advantage of, because I didn't have a place. And because I was looking for my place outside of myself, it never really came. And so my journey started with, I didn't know how to control anything around me. So I started to have an eating disorder, because it's the one thing that I knew what to control was myself. Right. And I see this a lot with the women in my world, whether it's in my VIPs whether it's in the breakthrough calls that I have, and you can always tap into these realms if you want as well, whether it's in my masterminds, programs, what have you, is there were hints and signs of self-worth and mistrust and needing to control parts of ourselves before the relationship cycle started. Right? So we can think like, oh, I can go back and I can tell you like anxious attachment style, avoidant attachment style. That's usually quote unquote with addiction, which my mother was an addict, but it's not just childhood, it's our life experiences that also compound on top of that. So even if you had a glorious parent-child relationship and you're experiencing relational trauma and relationships, toxic relationship cycles, and you're wondering like, why is this? My family's fine. Like what's going on here? It's compounded from our experiences throughout life, what we've been told, whether it's in friendships, whether it's in school, whether it's things like that, right? So that's what I was experiencing. So I was bullying in school, bullying in high school. Like I literally graduated high school in 3 years because I was like, fuck this place, I'm over it. Graduated college in 3 years because I was like, fuck this place, I'm over it. But my life, because I was told I was bad, because I was told I don't belong, I was told I was hypersexualized so that I could get attention, but that would lead to sexual assaults. And I'd be using drugs and drinking so I could get numb enough to feel alive, and I was every chance I got leaving my body, torturing my body, essentially over exercising, under eating. And ultimately, after losing my mom at 22, I found myself in Asia trying to find myself because I knew what I was doing. I was so angry. Like my response system was anger. My response system was like, I need to control everyone so that I can feel safe. My response system were all these kind of dynamics. But what happened was in those moments, I lost it. So although I moved different countries, it doesn't matter where you move, you don't heal with your trauma and your story and what's happening. It's still going to follow you. And so I found myself in a drug addiction with domestic violence and selling drugs and trauma bonding, like codependency. That's when like the last thing happened. Because here's the thing about God, universe, source. They will continually give you signs that you need to do work on yourself and you need to take radical responsibility for where you're at. And if you don't, the pings are going to start getting louder and louder and louder. And I can say that from personal experience. I can see it from my early childhood, the pings, the pings, the pings, the pings. God, universe, source was like, we're trying to tell you something and you're not fucking listening. So we're going to knock you on your ass and almost lose my life. And so it's through this work, what I'm going to be teaching you over these 2 weeks is what has gotten me here. Healthy relationships, reconnected with my family. I fucking love dating now. Like I was able to fall in love again, which is something I didn't think was possible. And it was a healthy love. And although that we broke up, like that love story and that pains me. It's also to show you how unattached you can be because he was not my happiness. I was okay. Yes, it hurt. It still hurts. But I was actually just telling my sister the other day, I was like, this breakup has been so fun. Like who I've become is so fun. The woman that I want to come. And that's the gift that I want to give you because you were born worthy and nothing has changed. Life is a gift. Messages are gifts. And although it hurts when our heart breaks. It hurts when someone cheats on us. It hurts when we realize we've been manipulated. It hurts when our parents don't act in the way that we want them or need them to. It hurts when friendships are lied to. Like they're so valid. They're so valid. When your heart aches for that, and they're portals of activation. And when we remove ourselves from something is wrong with me into what lesson can I learn here, everything changes. Everything changes, and you become this unattached woman that isn't, oh, something's wrong with me because he didn't choose me, right? Like if I look at my relationship ending, we broke up because he wanted a Latin woman. We were about to be engaged. Like, hello, you should have known that I am not Latin, but to be in that space where like that could be a crunch for a lot of people. But for me to be able to receive that, for him to safely say that, and it was not of a space of like, hey, I'm going to do this to hurt you. Like we worked through it. We tried. Like it just wasn't something we could overcome. but it wasn't from a space of, I want to hurt you. It was from a space of, this is just my deepest desire. And like, we all deserve that type of freedom. And when you become a unattached living sanctuary, it doesn't ultimately mean you ride off into the sunset with the most beautiful human being in the world. Ultimately, yes, like in my core, in my being, that will happen. Again, we don't go backwards. I don't know if I ever said that, but it's like, if not this, something better. I firmly believe that in my soul, even when it hurts. Because when you're an unattached living sanctuary, no one's actions, opinions, belief systems, values, their projections, their beliefs, anything about them means nothing to do with you. So if you've been cheated on, it means nothing about you. If your parents didn't raise you in the way that you wanted to, and you didn't get the love that you wanted and so deeply deserved, it wasn't about you. If a friendship lied to you, went behind your back, told your secrets, did what have you, it wasn't about you. If you didn't get chosen for a certain team or a position or what have you, it wasn't about you. It was never about you. There's nothing wrong with you. It just either wasn't the right time, it was their protection, it was their projection. Because at the end of the day, our subconscious, our programming, we are all just traumatized 7-year-olds looking for survival. And we act that out in different relationship patterns, in the way that we relate to people, in our health narratives, and our family dynamics, and the way that we relate in our business. Like, we are just trying to live that out. And when we can give permission to our little self, being like, hey, thank you for that protection, but I'm actually safe with this expansion. Because the thing about your nervous system as well, and your subconscious programming, is when you start to approach an edge that you're not used to, it's going to try and pull you back. It's going to be like, bit out of reach. And then we start to repeat these cycles and we go back in. I'm going to drop in the chat box and read here. So just listen, let me know if I should jump in. Yes, please drop your comments in the chat box. So to jump in, let me know what is going on. Of course, this is a two-way conversation. Again, I'll be checking in here. Yeah, I can totally relate. I keep attracting men who cheat, lie, and manipulate. I'm 43 years old, and not where I thought I would be. Just less. Yeah, and I'm so sorry about that. Honestly, like, I'm holding your heart in that, because when something like that, like a narcissist and cheating and manipulation, actually I want to riff on cheating really quick, because that one is near and dear to my heart. My partner had cheated on me too, right? And every partner I've ever had has cheated on me. And what feels so good, and let me know if this lands for you, take it, leave it as you will. Again, this is my personal experience, is when I found out about my partner. There are times in my past when I had men that cheat on me, and I thought it meant everything to do with me. Like, I wasn't giving them enough attention, that I wasn't valuing them, that I was too much, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't dressing a certain way, that I wasn't present enough, that I didn't look a certain way. Like, I thought all these things, and then I would manipulate me, who I was, how I speak, and I would get quiet, right? In this last one, in my last relationship, when he came to me and he said, he didn't even say. It was when I was studying for my trauma exams, and a woman always knows. And wow, we're getting deep here. Clearly, welcome to my life, yo. We were sitting there, I was studying for my trauma exams. We had been through a little stickle pickle, and I didn't even want to be there. I just needed to use his Wi-Fi. His phone rang, and his phone flipped too quick, and my stomach instantly dropped. I was like, fuck, because I would have never expected it from this person. Never in a million fucking years, because he is a good person. I would not claim him as a narcissist. I would not claim him as anything. He's a young soul and he has a path to live. And that's not bypassing, because I have been with narcissists. I have been with physically and emotionally abusive men. This person was not one of them, right? His phone moved too quick. We got to the lunch break during my exam, and I looked at him and I was like, who's so-and-so? And instantly he told me everything and whatever. What I realized is it doesn't have to do with us every time. Sure, sometimes it can be because we're not having sex and we've been distracted and we do these things and whatever, but like sometimes, and this is what the hard part of wrapping our head around, it's like we used to have sex twice a week. There was romance, we were on dates, we turned it all the way up, and it's like men will cheat because they can. And that may piss you off. Because to them, like for us, sex is so intimate, right? Like I know it is for me. I don't sleep around. That's never been my thing. I physically can't do that. Like my vagina literally will not get wet. But men do it when they love a chase. And this is going to be more in sacred singlehood that I talk about chase and singleness and creating this attraction or becoming that bitch. I did talk about that in there as well. But they love a good chase. But for them, sex is just sex. This release, this lust, this chase, this I'm stressed, I want to get off here. Like if it's just sex, if it's an emotional thing. I was actually just having this conversation. I went on a date. I don't know how we got on this topic, but we were talking about this concept where it's like, it's never about, hurting anyone, but sometimes women want the emotional connection so that we can get into bed with them because it's very different. And we just kind of talked about the difference in that. But when a man cheats, rarely does it have anything to do with you. And so there's nothing for you to change, right? And maybe it's a cycle that's repeating itself, but the cycle that needs to be addressed isn't that necessarily. It's one going back to what pattern am I repeating? Like for me, it was unavailable men. Unavailable men. Where did that start? For me, it was my dad. And this just like I am opening this ball of bananas with you guys. Like this landed so deep since this recent trip home. That instead of accepting someone as they are, it's this chase for something that they are not. And to belong and to fit into that, instead of chasing that, where can you bring it back to yourself of how can I belong to me? Love, belong in. But like I met a really good guy. Like this, like it does, like this is why I said like it could be in 2 weeks, things click for you. But like after having this realization, like I met a really good guy that just wants to like stay up and talk till 4 a.m. and have conversations and he's not sexualizing me. And like it really does, just as quick as that, is this realization of looking at self. What is my origin story? What is my deep belief? Instead of I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm not in these things, it's where was this started in my nervous system, right? And like for me to look back and be like, well, I'm no longer dating narcissists and abusive men and into drugs and selling, like I'm not into that realm anymore. And I did find a man that does love me, but he's unavailable to me. And so him cheating has nothing to do with me. It had to do with the fact of, and here's the thing that hurts. Although I have quite high standards and requirements, I didn't lay them out to him. And so he thought he could get away with it. Move forward, come home, wash his hands, be clean of it, and be done. It was my fault. Not my fault. It's my responsibility. That there are things and expectations and quote unquote rules if you're going to be in partnership with me. And we're going to talk about this throughout these 2 weeks of setting standards, creating requirements, creating these things within a new lifestyle. And I talk about this often, like I have standards for myself, but that was not communicated in the partnership. Right? So if someone is cheating on you and you've been through scenarios like this, it's looking at it and being like, where did I self-abandon to accompany this person because I was so afraid they would leave? Because men know this. Men know we will choose love over them leaving, and we will tolerate so many things and so many capacities and all these kind of things because we don't want to be left. And so when we reframe that and we take back our power, which is exactly what we're fucking doing inside of Unattached, that changes. And it doesn't mean like, and for me, like, I don't think cheating is a one-off thing, but like, or a make or break, but a lot of women it is, and like that's your standard, that's your requirement. And that's the communication, it's setting a new standard for your life. It's being the living sanctuary, it's holding this space and being bold and brave and unbreakable. Is that landing for you? How are we feeling with that? I'm back home now. Yeah. And so it's going back to our childhood and looking, and like, even then I wouldn't say like narcissist is very thrown around, like, again, I don't know, but like looking at my life, like I wouldn't ever say my dad is that. It's just different capacities of love that people are capable of, right? And like for me, my dad's just not that. And now it's like this freedom of like, I get to now, instead of chasing this one area, I get to fill myself up. Instead of feeling like I don't belong here, I get to create space here. I get to be that for self. Because if we continually seek love and validation and belonging, and we're being met with rejection and detachment and avoidance and anxiety, that's being programmed into our subconscious. And that's how then we relate to others, which is what we're trying to reprogram here. Right. And so, yes, attachments come from childhood, but then they're also played out in our lived experiences, whether it's the school system, whether it's in, the work life, whether it's in our business, whether it's in our relationships. They're played out time and time and time again. And we get to stretch our nervous system. We get to expand our nervous system. And wherever that emotion is trapped, and we're going to expand on this more, but like even today, for example, like I woke up, regardless, being human and dating, like it gives you anxiety a bit, like you're like, like chicken nugget brain, like what are they doing? What the fuck? But you have the power, you have the responsibility to bring that back in, right? Like here's the thing about, let me go down to my notes for this part, this codependency myth and this dependency myth, right? We think like codependency and belonging to others, and the common belief is that if you become dependent on your partner or anyone in any way, then you're deficient in something. And it's advised to fix your sense of self and your sense of worth. Of course, that's what I was just saying. But it's not entirely fully the full picture. That's a fun way of saying that. Like biology says something that's different. Our partners, our friendships, the people we surround ourselves with, they regulate your heart rate. They give you hormonal balance. They regulate your breathing. They impact our breathing. We literally start to breathe like the people around us. We become one. Dependency is a fact, not an option, right? Like it's an instinct for us to belong to others that we trust in. Now, when we lose ourselves in that and we become attached to it and we have these expectations, that's when the problems start to arise, right? So it's not, we think that reaching for another is weakness instead of instinct. Like it is okay. That's why we're in programs together, right? It's just who we reach out to. This is why I love group programs. We do co-regulation together just by being on this call together. I can feel your heart in this call. I can feel the energy, even for those that aren't on this call right now, right? Because I've had conversations to them. I'm speaking to everyone that I've been in connection with here, right? That's where co-regulation. So it's not a bad thing to have codependency in that way. The self-defense, it's like, it's the myth of it. Yes, when we have losing ourselves kind of codependency, but being dependent on another. What we want to get to in this program is the understanding of interdependency. You're an individual, I'm an individual, you're an individual, but we have our own lives, we do our own thing. And then when we come together, there's this trust, there's this safety, there's a regulation, right? And then the dependency myth is that our need for someone to share our lives with is part of our genetic makeup, right? We are born to be in tribes. That's it. And so it's not about having this deep independence and this independent woman and I'm fine on my fucking own and building up all these walls and then wondering why we're so lonely and wondering why when we do let people in, it's not the right people. It's like, because we're actually blocking our heart, because we're not actually vulnerable and open, because we don't feel safe in that. So it's like looking at like, oh yes, I'm calling in these unavailable men, but how available am I? How actually vulnerable, or is it the masks that I put on so that I can belong? Is it all the personalities that I put into my nervous system to somehow feel safe? and belong, that actually I'm not fully me. Because if you actually knew, I remember this being the thing too, like men, good men that wanted to love me after the traumatic relationships that I had, they'd be like, I love you. And I'd be like, you don't even know me. Okay. Like, it's not what you want to hear when someone says, I love you. And so when, you know, regardless of our conscious desires, regardless of that, our genetic makeup wants to be in partnership with others, that deep connection, that deep belonging. So yes, we're going to be in this program and be learning about self-worth and independency, and, being our own self-regulation. But I also want to write the permission slip that it's okay that we go into relationships and we feel certain ways, and that's our deepest desire, or one of our deepest desires. Because think of it when we were kids, right? It's this sense of freedom too. It's the choice paradox and what have you, where we often think like, oh, if I have all these options and whatever, and we're going to talk about circle dating, we're going to talk about all this kind of stuff. But if I have all these options, therefore I'm more free. Actually, that's not true at all. When we have one choice, we actually feel more safe to go explore other options. Think of it as a child, right? When they have a secure attachment with their parent, they'll be sitting with them, and then they'll go and they'll explore, and they'll look back at their parent to be like, oh, is it safe to go do this? And they'll be like, yeah, it's fine. And then you go and you do, and you feel safe. But if you look back and they're not there and it's very inconsistent, you're like, where are they? Like, you don't, like, all of a sudden you're like in that fight, flight, freeze. You're in that freeze state. You're like, where are they? What are they doing? And this is where that anxious attachment comes in that we're going to talk about on Thursday. And it doesn't actually feel safe to explore. Then we're sitting here and we're like, let me check my phone 1,000 times. Let me do this. Let me, and our brains are not present. Our brains are thinking of, what are they doing? Who are they with? Are they thinking of me? What do I do? It's not even here. Right? And the thing that I want, and the thing that's so beautiful about the unattached woman, is when you're with them, you're with them. You're so present, you're so in love. It's like a warm blanket, right? Whether it's your loved one, whether it's your parents, whether it's your lover, whatever, you're with them, you're present. But when you are not with them, they're not with you. And this one takes practice. This is what was happening this morning, right? So when I talk about this interdependence, that's where I was going with this story. We come full circle. It's natural that when we are with someone and they make us feel good, and when we're dating and we get our hormones up, we get the oxytocin, we get the dopamine, the serotonin, like, ooh, love is such a fun drug, right? And when we're away from that, it's normal to be a little bit anxious, to be like, da, 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 what are you doing? Da, 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 what's happening? And then it comes back to self. What do I want to do? Because that's not the type of person I want to be. I don't want to give a fuck, right? And again, that's masculine, feminine energetics. There's security within yourself. Like, I personally, not my vibe. I don't want to worry about you. I don't want to think about you. If you want to hang out with me, you have my number. We know what to do here, right? And so it's tapping into body, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow or Thursday. Tapping into body and going, what is my body trying to do right now? Like, I woke up this morning and I was anxious, and I was like, well, what's that feeling? Where am I feeling trapped right now? Right. And I realized, because of fight, flight, freeze, this is how we get out of a trauma response, because trauma in and of itself doesn't have to be a traumatic event. It is just a stored emotion in our body. And so I'm feeling the emotion, and I'm feeling the need to flee. Like, let go, let's get out of here. Right. And so I woke up and I was like, okay, let's go on a walk. And I was like, this isn't enough. And so I did a HIIT workout. Free. That energy out of my body, that release, to show to my nervous system, you can leave if you want, right? Like you are not stuck in this, you are not compounding it. Instead of sitting and being like, no, like I have to jump in work right now and I have to go do these things and let me just forget this, like fuck this, whatever, and go distract myself with something. It's actually tapping into your body and being like, what is that emotion that's happening? This is why I talk about in Sacred Singlehood, we have a lot of like sacred rage practice. We go through these practices so we don't restore it and compound it into our nervous system. You express it. So this morning when I was feeling anxious and letting my human be who she is without it being like, no, like even though this is my work and this is my life, humanness still exists, right? Like we're not going to be perfect forever. It just doesn't exist. It's like, okay, and now what? Ooh, my ear is ringing. Yay for channeling. And now what? Right? So looking at my life being like, what can I control right now? Cool. Let me go walk and do this thing. Like, because there's also that option. Do I need to downregulate my nervous system? Do I need to upregulate my nervous system? And so I wanted to process that. And it was like, oh, we need to like flee. We need to like wherever the story, because here's the thing, the difference between coaching and mentorship and therapy, right? Is therapy is more so like, let me focus on the origin story, right? Like, let me focus on my relationship with my dad. Let me focus on, my dating, and let me focus on these kind of things. Coaching and the way this works in mentorships and programs is more about learning about the present moment, right? So for me, there's like 3 ways of processing trauma. Essentially is 1, critically, like through our brain. This is where therapy comes in. 2, somatically through our body, and 3, meditation and expanding our nervous system and getting comfortable in that way. So I went the somatic route, right? Where like, I don't need to know necessarily why I'm feeling anxious right now. I don't need to know what is coming from, what is triggering this event in my body, because what's happening is the emotion that I'm feeling right now is triggered clearly from something in my past, because I'm not responding to anything right now. I just woke up, right? Like there's nothing actually going on. So somatically in my body, whatever was being felt, this emotion that I'm feeling right now is from a time period when I didn't get to run away, when I didn't get to protect myself. So how can I do that now to show my nervous system that I need to get out and go away, right? Like this is where the personal responsibility is, and physical activity is perfect for releasing trauma responses, meditation, yoga, cold plunges, like showing your body that it can reach these edges and then come back, but really tapping into your body and going, what do I need right now? What am I feeling right now that needs to be released? And can I do that in an effective way? Because there are definitely ineffective ways that we can do this kind of stuff. But how can I start to release this in a way? So for me, that was going and doing a HIIT workout. So if you're feeling some type of way, instead of being like, because I also used to do this a lot, let me shelf it. Like I thought that this morning. I was like, I don't have time. Like I don't have time to wash my hair after I do such an intense workout. So I wear a bun today. But it was like, no, like this needs to get out before I go and I channel this transmission to this beautiful community and do these kind of things. And instead of shelving, if it's making the time for it, right? You're the artist of your life. You're the artist. It's looking at what in my subconscious is happening instead of trying to analyze the world around us. Instead, we live in a world where we like to pathologically put things into places, and we want to belong to communities and groups and things like that. And that's natural. Like I said, that's the dependency and codependency myths. That's totally normal. But sometimes it can go a little bit too extreme, where what am I and who am I and what's happening here? And instead of making movement in that, we get stuck in this healing phase, right? I'm not actually fully living my life because I have to be healing and I have to be processing and I have to be overanalyzing. And what I really want you to walk away from today and this program is that living in a turned on state of being, living in a life that is filled in delight and joy, that's where we want to be, right? Like shadow work and healing our attachments and healing our trauma and healing all these things. Like it doesn't have to be a dark night of the soul journey, right? We often think like, oh, my best lessons come from my darkest times. And they do, like they do. And sometimes your greatest lessons can be from love and joy and being present and learning in those moments as well. And we get a choice in which ones we want to call in, right? And so if you enrolled in this program because something happened that you're like, I'm Ouch. Ouch. And I'm so fucking ready to be done. Right? Like from that space, not the ouch, but the I'm so fucking ready to be done. And I'm so fucking ready to be alive and delighted and enjoy and in love and turned the fuck on by my life. This magnetic force to feel safe, to go out there, to be seen. Like we get to learn from that space too. Is this landing for you? How are we feeling? How's everything going? And so really what I want to walk away from today is releasing shame of any of the things that have happened in your life narrative and the journey that you've been through, and the things that have been recycling through, and understanding that God, universe, source, what have you, that there is sometimes when we feel stuck in a certain space of life that frustration comes. And again, that comes back to time pressure. And, if we extend our time horizon, how can I look at this situation in my life a little bit differently? And looking at things going, okay, so if I'm still repeating the cycle, what is the thing I'm not learning yet? Right? Because if I'm still here, it means there's something that I haven't learned that's going to get me here. So what is it? Can you become a little bit more curious and filled with wonder, and, becoming the childlike joy detective? Not like the big, like, what's wrong with me detective, but like the childlike joy being like, but why? Kind of vibe. And looking at it that way, right? Like give yourself the permission and grace. Give yourself the compassion that you pray for, right? Give yourself that compassion that you wish the universe, God, source, other people would give you when looking at this stuff. You are exactly on time. There's absolutely nothing fucking wrong with you. You are beautiful, you are whole, and you are shifting because you're here. You're shifting because you're here. Nothing is but you are it's shifting from like, these are the patterns that I'm repeating in my life, to I am an alchemist and everything I touch turns to gold. Right? Like, even if it doesn't work out in the way that I want it to be, everything I touch turns to gold. The people, the places, the things, the business, the money, the bodies, everything. The narratives that were are no longer the narratives that are. And through this program, that's what we're going to be mastering. That's what we're going to be rewiring. Because what's programmed in our subconscious is the fact that we're a bunch of 7-year-olds in human shells trying to heal our traumas and shift our neural networks from a space of lack, from a space of protection, from a space of unease. When if we switch that to abundance, when we switch that to self-trust, when we switch that to permission and radical responsibility, everything changes. It becomes soft, it becomes tender, it becomes trustworthy. And so to break dysfunctional relationship patterns, to break the insecure attachments and shift into this secure place, we have to heal that little girl, that little boy inside. Right? We have to listen to what's coming through, to seeing what's coming through with loving eyes, not frustrations of like, for fuck's sake, stop repeating this, but from loving eyes being like, thank you for protecting me, but I actually no longer need that, and we're safe, and here's what we're going to do instead. And here's how we're going to express that trapped emotion instead. And here's how we're going to navigate life, right? And so what I want to do for today is our homework for today. I'm going to put this in the on our portal, is I want you to write a forgiveness letter, right? I want you to, and this is perfect because this is the 8-8 portal. It is all about manifestation, but first we have to release before we call in what we want. So this is perfect time to set up sanctuary and all the kind of things for today is right. Whoever has harmed you, whether it's an ex, whether it's a friend, whether it's a parent, whether it's a school, whether it's a business partner, right until your heart feels like it's unclenched. And remember that forgiveness doesn't mean you welcome them back into your life, but if you're holding on to anger and you're holding on to patterns, you're holding on to these things, all it's doing is reprogramming itself into your nervous system. All it is you holding on to the anger, which is blocking you from the love story of the ages. So writing forgiveness letters to these people. And then once that's complete, you can burn it. You can send it if you feel called. You can bury it in the backyard, let it to the universe, let it out, right? And then I want you to sit down and I want you to write a forgiveness letter to yourself. To yourself. Because we are responsible for certain aspects of our lives and we have the highest judgment and critiques to ourselves. Can you forgive yourself? Can you forgive the little girl that's been trying to protect herself? Can you forgive you? For the things, for the shame, for the shadows. Let that come through. This can be on that solo date that you take yourself on. And then once we release these things, I wouldn't say do these two things. So do those 2 letters, let that marinate. And then sometime this week, get yourself into a turned on state and go take a solo date. Lock in, like feel your entire body present and filled with joy and celebration that you're doing this. Lock it into the universe that you're sending out the message that you choose you. This is the beginning of a story that you will someday tell, or you will continue to tell currently in this moment, whether it be, but like, let this be a moment of change instead of just another program or another masterclass. Let this be that. So write your forgiveness letters. Let that be. Release it to the universe. Release the clenches of your heart around these things. Let that marinate, and then the day after, tomorrow, go out, get yourself into a turn-on state, go have a glass of Prosecco or a nice fancy latte with a nice baked good, because that's always a vibe, and just feel into this moment. What do you want this to mean for you? Who do you want to become in this mission, in this journey, in this joy? And then I'm going to also put a test in here of figuring out your attachment style. So it's an ECR test. So we can start to play around with which attachment style are you, because that'll help us out with the next coming modules around creating healthy attachment styles and activating strategies and all these kind of things. So I'm going to put this all inside of our little portal. Let me know how you're doing. Do you have any questions? Anything at all? For anyone watching the replay, you can definitely shoot me an email with anything that comes up, or as you're doing these practices and things that arise. Like, my inbox is always open, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's in on email. And if you have anyone you know that can benefit from a program like this, invite them. This is how we start to co-regulate together. This is how we start to collapse time in our healing, is surrounding ourselves in people that do this work as well. So I will see you on Thursday for our second call for our module on anxious attachment, and I will put all of this stuff up into our portal. So I love you so much. I'm celebrating you. I'm honored to be on this walk with you. I can't wait to go out on a walk and just feel how activating and excited I am about this. Like, this is the start of something so much bigger. Like, I can feel it so alive, and I'm so honored to be here with you. And I hope you can feel that too. All right. I love you, and happy healings.